Hello, health enthusiasts, and welcome to Rev Up Health, your go-to podcast for all things wellness. I'm Dr. Mark Hechler.
And I'm Tandi Hechler. Together, we're here to fuel your health journey with the best of functional medicine and holistic well-being.
Each episode will dive deep into topics that matter to your health, bringing you the latest insights, research, and inspiring stories.
So whether you're on a quest for vibrant health or just looking for daily health tips, we've got you covered.
So let's embark on this journey together and transform the way you live.
We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the race we did in Bhutan and how I kind of decided that I really wanted to focus on improving my VO2 max. So we have some great friends over at a place called BodyMetRx, and they helped us out with some testing that we are going to share the results and kind of why we tested and all the things. We will likely do an interview type podcast with them later because they have lots of great information to share.
Yeah. So it's basically boils down to, VO2 max and body composition that we really found out when we did the testing over there. And it's very straightforward. There's a lot of variability in different types of testing, I guess is the disclaimer. So there's a lot of different ways and different pieces of equipment to test VO2 max and body composition. So you kind of have to keep that in mind. And it's certainly something that it's used more as a reference than it is actually than anything else. So it kind of shows you a snapshot of where you're at the time. And then you can use that to then make changes or adjustments or improvements or worsening, I guess, for that matter, where you're at. And so it's a way to help you kind of gauge your own fitness and your composition.
Yeah. They have told us that a lot of people are reaching out to them after reading Peter Attia's book, Outlive, which I don't have the cover on it, but it's a great book. And there's lots of great information in here about changing the way we think about practicing medicine. We'll probably do a book review of this at some point. In that, Dr. Attia talks about knowing what your body composition is. He recommends a DEXA scan. The testing that BodyMetRx has is a SECA scan, and it is preferential in my mind because it doesn't give you any radiation exposure. And you can do it more frequently because of that. So,
and DEXA scans, I'm not mistaken, you probably need an physician order.
Yes. Yeah, that's going to take a physician's order.
And honestly, you can go Amazon and get you a body composition scale. There's 4 points, 6, 8 points. There's a lot of different points of contact for determining body composition. So it is something you can do at home. Go to a lot of extremes, for convenience purposes. So it's certainly good information.
Yes. And the one thing that is great about BodyMetRx is that they keep your data and they can see where you're at and what you're trending, all those great things. So
very helpful.
Let's talk about muscle mass, fat mass, and visceral fat. That's
body composition, basically. So that's what makes up body composition. So you've got the muscle mass, which is primarily skeletal muscle. There's smooth muscle, obviously, in the body too, but this is measuring skeletal muscle mass. And then there's the fat mass, which is everything outside, you can think of outside of the abdominal cavity, your hips, and, thighs, etc. Yeah, the areas where you see. And then there's what's called visceral fat, which is what you don't see. That's inside the abdominal cavity. And that's the fat that basically is around the organs, the heart, the liver, etc. And
that's the most dangerous.
That's the fat that has the most metabolic influence, essentially, for maintaining health.
Yeah.
But muscle mass is such that we have this increase in muscle mass, which kind of is more of a natural process, which occurs to around 30 years old or so. And then from 30 years old onward, there's a slow and steady decline. And when you reach the 60s, it starts to decline a little bit faster. This is the reason why there's such an emphasis on muscle health to maintain that skeletal muscle mass going into, age because it has a natural tendency to decline. But there's also, they've also shown that you can increase your muscle mass at any age. Yes. So it's something that is comparable. They did studies where they took individuals in their 80s as well as individuals in their 20s and put them on an exercise program and showed that they can have a substantial 78% increase in muscle improvement within just a short period of time. So it's certainly something that can be increased and built even at any age. So it's not that, okay, well, I'm too old to start building muscle. That's not correct.
It's never too late. In fact, start today.
Yeah. It's really something that's extremely imperative. And we're going to continue to talk about that on multiple podcasts. But muscle is an organ that is overlooked. It's also one of the fewest organs that we can actually control. We can't control the brain as much as you think you can, or the heart, etc. But you can make huge strides and differences in the muscle. And muscle health is key to insulin resistance and glucose exposed, getting rid of the glucose. So those types of things are very important for that. And then not only are we talking about the metabolic part of that, we're also talking about strength, stability, and maintaining an upright posture so that when you fall, you're less likely to injure yourself. So obviously when we get older, we lose our strength, and the ones that fall going up the stairs or down the stairs or off a curb or trip over something, you're going to fracture something, and your mortality risk after a fracture when you're older goes up significantly.
Yeah.
It's a huge leading cause of death for individuals that have fractures. So
yeah. Let's see. We talked about all of that.
But I think we should probably get into our results. That'll help us to just describe a little bit of what we are and what we're doing and where we all need to go for that matter.
Sure. Okay, so you get a great little printout of your results. You also get it electronically. It's got lots of information. I'm going to talk to you about what all my information is here. So it gives you your weight. You've got your height that is already inputted in. They have their SECA scan also records your height. So it gives you a fat mass percentage.
Right. Fat mass percentage, skeletal mass also.
Yes. And then
visceral fat.
Another piece that's really good, it's a segmental skeletal muscle mass. And it takes your torso, your right arm, right leg, left leg, and tells what the muscle mass is in each of those.
Right. Which is kind of nice to see. Okay, if you've had an injury in the past, well, maybe your right hip or your right leg has less muscle mass. Or if you're right-handed or left-handed, that will also show. But it can be somewhat of an indicator of potentially the areas that you need to work on, if you're in an exercise environment and you want to improve that.
Yes. So my body fat percentage, based on the group of my peers, I'm kind of right there in the normal, barely. Mm-hmm. I did some other research, and this is information from 2013, but from the American Academy of Sports Medicine, and it basically shows that for my age and my body fat percentage, I am in a very poor section. So this is definitely something that I want to work on.
Some of that stuff is changed. And this does change. These analysis do change based upon currently what's happening in the United States. Which is everybody's getting a little heavier. We're putting on more weight. BMIs aren't exactly what they used to be either anymore. So with over 70% of the United States being overweight or obese, it changes these numbers.
The biggest thing that I want to say as I'm thinking about this and knowing what my fat mass percentage is, I also know what my skeletal muscle mass is. And truthfully, I'm not really in this to lose weight. I'm in this to gain muscle. That is what is important to me. But knowing that as you gain muscle, that mass percentage is also going to go down.
Right. Because, hormone optimization also is beneficial with better and more muscle mass than it is with fat mass and visceral mass for that matter too, visceral fat.
The other thing that a couple of the other metrics that you're going to get in this test. It does look at your water, like how hydrated you are. There's information around that, and they can speak more to that when we talk to them separately. It also, the SECA scan will give you a resting metabolic rate and a total energy expenditure. So a resting energy expenditure and a total energy expenditure. So that's like basically calories per day, what you would look at. Mine, they have another way to test that is a little bit more precise, but you do get that information with this test. This is a pretty basic test that takes 5-10 minutes. It's really good. So, Mark, do you want to talk about your?
Yeah, my stuff. Well, I'm pretty much normal for my weight. My fat mass percentage was very low.
Yeah.
And the very unusually low rate. I would like to say elite, but I'm not an elite runner. So there's a difference there. Skeletal mass is above average also for me there. And then, our visceral fats were quite low, which is really more of an indicator of your overall diet, essentially is what that boils down. How healthy you are and how healthy you eat. That makes a huge difference. If you're running down to McDonald's or over to Dairy Queen or some of the fast food places, if you're eating some of that stuff, that's going to change that visceral fat. We talked a lot about how and when and what to eat, and that's certainly something that contributes to that visceral fat, which over time, and it takes decades for this to occur, that can change that visceral fat, and that'll trickle down eventually to create metabolic dysfunction for us and lead to a lot of other problems.
Okay, so next test, the resting metabolic rate test. So this is a test where you get to sit in a nice, comfy lounge chair, massage chair, and you basically breathe through a tube and you plug your nose and you do this. It lasts about 10 minutes. The test will let you know when it's done. So sometimes it can take a little bit longer for some people.
All right.
But what that's doing is
totally at rest.
Yes, totally at rest and relaxation. And so what's being measured in your breath is
right. Basically all the products, all the byproducts, respiration or come along with what is going on physiologically within your system is essentially coming out your mouth.
Yes. So are you burning carbs?
It's like the exhaust on the car. It's totally, that's kind of how I look at it. It's kind of like the exhaust on the car. So you can kind of tell, is it too rich? Is it too lean? Was it burning oil, et cetera? So that's kind of how you can look at it. Predictors through the software of what your resting metabolic rate should be at. And then they'll give you ideas about, what are, there's things that we do fill out as far as your activities, right?
What you're doing for work and exercise. So this is a pretty great model. It tells you the resting and it adds in your work, your activity. And then it also gives you how many calories do you need to be consuming per day to maintain and where would you want to be for weight loss? I am not always a huge fan of calorie counting. I think there's a lot of other things that we can do when we're talking about nutrition, but it's good to have an idea. And I do think that the resting metabolic rate test is more precise. And yours was actually quite different from one test to another.
Right. And just so you're aware, obviously males are going to have higher resting metabolic rates than females do. That's just the way it is. Unfortunately, ladies, you get thrown into that deal. So men can sit here and burn more calories, literally, than women can. So that makes a huge difference. Just so you know the difference. Yours was 1,300, I believe it was, almost about 1,300
for resting,
and mine was about 2,000 resting metabolic rate. So that is literally sitting here doing nothing but breathing. That is what that measures. So anything activity-wise you do above that will result in more calorie burn.
So then the last test that we're going to talk about today is the VO2 Max. And this is one that a lot of folks are talking about. recently?
VO2 max is, obviously VO2 max, for people that don't know, is how physically fit your cardiopulmonary system is. It has to do with delivery of oxygen to the cells. So the better you're able to deliver more oxygen to your cells, the more fit you are. So in other words, the higher the number of VO2 max, the more fit you are. So your heart and your lungs are able to get that oxygen where it needs to be for cellular function.
And this is another thing similar to muscle, that it will steadily decline as you age. So you need to make sure that while you can, you maximize where you are so that when the decline starts, you're starting from a higher set point.
Yeah. So it's almost one of those things. Where do you want your VO2 max to be when you're 80 or 90? Because if it's not where it needs to be for you to be able to function, go on those trips, put your luggage in the overhead compartments, go up the stairs, carry the luggage, carry groceries, get up and down off the floor, do just basic activities. If you don't know where you want your VO2 max to be, then you're going to have to do more work to get it there. And you kind of have to look backwards. It's almost a backwards look situation where, okay, at 80 or 90, I want my VO2 max to be around 30-ish for me to be able to be self-sufficient and independent. And to be there, you're going to have to start earlier, 10, 20, 30 years sooner at this VO2 max level, because it's going to go down here, and it's just the way it is.
This is the whole idea behind training for the centurion.
Right. Yeah, it's quite important. So I think it's certainly something that actually can be improved, at any age. You can improve your VO2 max at any age, which is a good thing about it. So you just have to know there's going to be a steady decline.
Yeah. So in this test, you do get your VO2 max, you get your zones. So where your heart rate is in each zone. You'll hear a lot about zone 2 and working out in zone 2 in order to, that's a component of improving your VO2 max, is longer times in zone 2.
Yeah. So there's different zones based upon your heart rate. And,
So
what your heart rate, it determines what your heart rate is and where you're at in that zone. And it's pretty individualized for you. So it gives you what your maximum heart rate should be, and what you are in the zone 5, which is the all out turning and burning type thing. And it's, you can't sustain that for very long periods of time. But zone 2, which you mentioned, is not basically defined as, am I able to carry a conversation on during an exercise? Yes.
It's like you're almost not comfortable, but you can still carry on a conversation.
Right. So, it's just something that makes you think about that, and your heart rate is the predictor of that to an extent.
Yeah.
And of course, the better shape you're in, the lower your heart rate's going to wind up being. You're going to be able to carry on conversations a little easier. There's other thresholds that go along with that too, with lactate levels. Those are basically breakdown products from aerobic and anaerobic changes that occur. The anaerobic exercise is what causes that lactate to get higher.
Yeah. Another thing that you get, if you are an athlete, you get a sheet that tells you where you were when you went from burning carbs to burning fat, or vice versa. So that's a great thing for folks who are athletes training for marathons,
right,
half marathons.
It tells you where your heart rate needs to be. And it tells you also, okay, what percentage of my refueling do I need to have in carbs or fat, and how much do I need?
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of lets you know that if you got a long endurance event, I'm going to have to pack 600 calories of food, or something along that line. It just depends on your levels, but that'll give you indications about where you need to be with your nutrition.
Yeah. So we have been for a couple of weeks, and when I say we, I mean me, because he's pretty all right. But I will tell you, my VO2 max is 35.9, and that puts me in a good category for my age.
Right.
And this kind of goes along similar to how we talk about lab values. Like, do I want to be good for my age, or would I want to be good for, a 30 to 40-year-old.
Do you want to be 50 or 60 good, or do you want to be 30-year-old good?
Yes.
So keep in mind, you want to start high because you're going to wind up lower. So it's not easy to keep that up sometimes.
And your VO2 max?
Yeah, my VO2 max was 44.6.
Okay.
And let's see, mine was in the excellent range.
Yes.
Yes, it better be, because I need to be in better shape for the races coming. But anyway, that kind of gives you a little indication about kind of what VO2 maxes do.
So in all of this, what are some things that I am going to be doing to make some progress here? And right now I'm adding in strength training regularly, more zone 2 working out, and some HIIT here and there. The other piece from a nutrition standpoint that I'm looking to add in is more protein. So the idea is to get 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. So that's a lot of protein, and it's
best to spread those out. Studies show that the first meal of the day needs to have between 30 and 50 grams of that protein. That's when your body needs that protein to perform muscle synthesis. There's a lot of different types of protein to consume, but it's basically the more complete your protein, the more complete your amino acids that you intake to be able to create and produce muscle fibers. So the types of protein are variable, and it's a little harder for someone that's not a meat eater. But meat in general, whether it be beef, pork, chicken, fish, the more variety you can have, the better.
And add in there, I'll say elk, venison, bison.
All right. Yeah, elk is really amazing from its nutritional standpoint. So it's kind of my favorite.
Lots of plant-based proteins as well, beans, tofu, all of the different tofu, soy products.
The ways that you can increase your VO2 max, there's several ways. Increasing your zone 2, and some studies say if we could just maintain at least 80% of our exercise activities in the zone 2, you're going to improve your VO2 max. But, for folks that are more of the elite trainers or marathon runners, Ironman type of situation, they really need to increase more of your HIIT and high intensity interval trainings. You're going to spend more time in high intensity interval training than you will in zone 2 for those folks. The overall key to all the activities and all the exercise routines, no matter what you're doing, whether you're biking or whether you're running or whether you're walking, resistance training is very important. Yes, endurance training is very important, but it's being consistent. Consistency wins the race. And, those are the people that are going to time in, time out at the end of the year, going to be the ones that are going to have the better endurance and the better VO2 max. And it's a little bit easier to stay on the exercise bus if you're consistent. So nobody wants to get kicked off that. And it's also one of those things that, for myself, when I try high intensity interval training, I know it's good for me, but it's also such that you can also injure yourself. And I have pulled many hamstrings before not warming up properly or doing the HIIT. So I kind of have to be very careful with that. It's all about stretch and strengthen, so to prevent injury.
Thank you for joining, and we're happy that you're here joining along in this journey. If you have questions, if you want to see how things go, don't forget to subscribe and follow and all those good things. Have a healthy day.
Bye now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Rev Up Health. We hope you're leaving with some valuable insights to supercharge your health journey.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe to Rev Up Health wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating and review.
Have a topic you want us to explore? Reach out to us on social media channels. We love hearing from our wellness community.
Until next time, keep thriving, and remember, your journey to health is a journey to a better you.
Stay well, and we'll connect with you again soon. This is Tandi.
And this is Dr. Mark, signing off from Rev Up Health. Take care.
The information provided in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. The content is designed to support, not replace, the relationship that exists between a patient and their healthcare provider. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your healthcare regimen, including diet, exercise, or treatment plans. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Revelation Health and Wellbeing.